I heard the gunshot before I heard my own name. The city had just exhaled into darkness, elevators stalled, sirens mutated, the river swallowing the skyline like a long, unlit sentence, when Noah's voice cracked in my ear. Static chewed the syllables. Then a hollow pop cut the call, small as a fist closing on a secret, loud as a promise ending. "Noah?" I said to the dark. "Noah?" The word dropped straight down the stairwell of my building, where neighbors were already lighting candles, where a dog barked like a metronome for panic. My phone screen reflected my face in a smear of silver. I called again. Voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. On the third try, I ran. The blackout peeled the city to its bones. Street vendors were ghosts behind shut metal teeth. A couple argued by the dead crosswalk, their hands doing the shouting. Somewhere, a generator coughed up hope. I threaded past the sound, past the memory of the last time Noah and I had stood in honest light. We had promised to stop chasing stories that chased us back. We lied kindly like people who think kindness can hold a door against a storm. Noah's studio was 8 blocks and a bridge of breath away. When I reached it, the building wore the blackout like a bruise. The stairwell stank of old coffee and rain-wet denim. I climbed anyway, counting heartbeats like steps. At his door, my knuckles hesitated, then became something harder. "Police," someone barked from the far end of the hallway. A flashlight cut a white road through the dark. I lifted my hands out of instinct and history. "I'm a reporter," I said. He called me. I heard a shot. The beam narrowed on my press badge, then drifted to my face like a decision being made. Name Lila Hart. The flashlight softened a little, like it remembered me. "Detective Avery Cho," the voice answered, shaped like patience. "We got multiple calls. Stay behind me." Inside, Noah's studio smelled like pine cleaner and metal string. The window was open to a dead street. A guitar lay on the couch, its neck turned toward the door as if it had been listening. A glass had tipped dark stain blooming on the rug like a sudden country. "No body. No Noah." Avery swept the beam like a second hand, precise. "If this is a prank," she said to the air, "it's a costly one." "He was on the phone," I said. "With me?" Then I didn't say it. The room had already heard. The power blinked once, twice, like an apology the grid couldn't keep. In that dim pulse, something on the mixing desk caught a flash, a tiny red LED still beating. A portable recorder. I reached, and Avery's hand got there first. "Evidence," she said. Then, after a breath, "You can listen with me." She pressed play. At first, only electricity remembered how to speak. Then Noah's voice poured out tired velvet, a scrape of late-night honey. "If she hears this before I can explain," the sentence, sharpened like a blade pulled free. "Lila, don't come here." My name in his mouth was a map I had once lived on. Avery glanced at me, then at the door. The recording stuttered. A chair leg cried against the floor. A second voice, distant, more weather than man. "Time." "Noah again, lower." "You said after the drop." A sigh of footsteps. A door. Then that same hollow pop, not cinematic at all. A pop made of ordinary terror, the kind that sits down with you at breakfast. The recording ended. The room resumed being only a room. Avery pocketed the device. "U2 history." "Yes," I said, which was both a truth and a ruin. "Then you know his enemies." "I know his songs," I answered. "They're not the same." We looked at each other like two people agreeing not to say the obvious thing, that love is the most careless witness. Outside, a river siren tried to learn a lullaby it didn't believe in. Avery's radio spit a burst of code. "Shot reported at Pier 17. Possible connection to our outage grid." She weighed me with her eyes. "You're staying out of this, Miss Hart." I nodded the way reporters nod when they're already moving. "Of course." She was gone in 3 strides and a command. I locked Noah's door on his habit, the turn he always forgot. Then I felt around for the corner where he used to keep spare batteries and half-finished apologies. My hand found neither. Instead, it found a post-it glued under the desk, tactile as a memory. One word, black ink, 3 syllables, switchman. The city inhaled darkness again, longer this time, like it might keep it. I tucked the note into my wallet, where other truths had once pressed their faces and fogged the plastic. When I stepped back into the hallway, the flashlight road was gone. That was when my phone vibrated like a small, brave animal. Unknown number. No caller ID in a city that had just lost its name. I answered. A breath. A room full of nothing. Then a voice made of ash and rope said my name, like it was finishing someone else's prayer. Lila, it said. If you want him alive, take the recorder and follow the dark. The line cut. I waited, because that is what you do when your story becomes the coin flip of your life. Then I ran, because that is what you do when you have already chosen. Subscribe for tomorrow's story. The voice that told me to follow the dark forgot to mention that darkness multiplies. By the time I reached the river, the blackout had folded the waterfront into a single unlit lung. Pier 17 was a rumor of wood and wind. Police tape fluttered like a thin, nervous flag. Ms. Hart, Detective Avery's voice arrived before her light did. She stood at the barricade, radio clipped close to her jaw. You don't listen. I listen, I said. I just don't obey. She stared like a teacher, picking which rule to throw away. Workers heard a shot, saw two figures. Then nothing. Her beam skated across wet planks, halted on a skid of dark that wasn't water. Someone bled here. Noah? I asked, and the question shook so hard it became two questions. We don't know. She exhaled. And we don't have power. Half my cameras are blind. Maybe that's the point, I said, and didn't add The word sat in my wallet, warming like a coal. Avery's radio crackled. Dispatch calling in a male, mid-30s found near South Street disoriented. No ID, taken to St. Bridget. Her eyes flicked up. Mine were already moving. Miss Hart, I'll text you. I lied, and ran. St. Bridget's wore the blackout like a chore it had trained for. Backup lights hummed. Nurses moved in narrow ribbons of electricity. The air smelled like alcohol wipes and stubborn hope. At intake, I said his name. The clerk said a room number. My feet learned it faster than my mouth could thank her. He lay propped against thin pillows, IV drifting into his arm. The power hiccuped, steadied, hiccuped again. In those stutters, Noah's face blurred from the man I loved, to a stranger someone had sketched from memory. He was awake. His eyes were the same color as the last hour of a storm. Noah, I said, and the room rearranged itself around the word. He looked at me, polite as an elevator. I'm sorry, he said, voice sanded down to careful. Do we know each other? A sound left me that could have been a laugh if it wore different clothes. I caught the railing and counted to 5 the way people count after miracles and collisions. Yes, I said softly, I'm Lila. He tested the name against the air, then against his own mouth. Nothing lit. He glanced toward the door, as if a safer version of me might enter and explain me to him. The doctor on shift, a woman with chewed cuticles and perfect eyeshadow, slid in with a clipboard. Good news is, he's stable, she told me, then aimed her sentences at Noah. CT is clean for acute bleeds, but your labs and history suggest prior trauma and stress. Memory loss can happen after certain events. What events? I cut, gentler than I felt. Concussions, extreme adrenaline, seizures, psychological shock. She measured both our faces at once. Sometimes it returns. Sometimes it doesn't. We chart, we watch. 3 years, Noah murmured, looking at a clock that was probably turned off. That's what they said I'm missing. I remember finishing a mix in a crappy sublet in Bushwick, and a girl in a red coat I was trying not to write about. His eyes returned to mine, apologizing for a crime he hadn't meant to commit. You're not in that part. I was suddenly grateful for everything the blackout hid. We met after Bushwick, I said. You made coffee like a religion. I pretended I didn't like your songs, so you'd argue with me. I stopped. There are verbs you don't throw at a man who has misplaced his past. A nurse adjusted the fort. Keep it light, she advised. Not unkindly. Brains don't like being chased. I swallowed the ache down to something I could carry. Okay, I said. Light. We tried small talk, a foreign language between old immigrants. He asked about the city like it was an ex. We both shared. I told him that power would cough and crawl back. We didn't touch. In every pause, the recorder I didn't have, ticked like a metronome Avery's pocket. The caller's command. The word under Noah's desk. Why were you at the pier? I asked finally. His mouth shaped confusion with delicate care. Pierre? Never mind, I said, lying to both of us. Wrong rumor. Avery arrived with a coffee she didn't offer. She posted herself at the foot of the bed like a thesis. Mr. Reyes, I'm Detective Cho. You were found a few blocks from South Street Seaport. No ID, minor lacerations, right palm abrasion. Do you recall anyone you were with tonight? He studied his hands as if they might confess. I remember he frowned, pulling at a thread inside his head. There was a word. A job, maybe. Switch. Something. The syllables hit my ribs like sparrows. I kept my face awake. Avery and I glanced at each other and pretended we hadn't. Any threats recently? She asked. Anyone angry about your work? People are always angry about music, he said, then softer, sometimes for the right reasons. She nodded, the way good listeners nod when they'd prefer to bark. We recovered a portable recorder from your studio. I'll need you to authorize a forensic copy. The studio, he repeated, turning the word around like a key that didn't fit the door. Did I live there? Sometimes, I said, and it was the closest thing to truth that didn't require a we. When Avery left to fight another fire in a city made of them, I stood. I'll give you rest, I told Noah, memorizing nothing because everything had already been stolen. Lila, he said, treating my name like glass. If we did mean something, we do, I said, not bothering to translate the tense. We do mean something. My smile was a better liar than I am. And we don't have to rush back to it. He breathed out, a surrender to a war he didn't remember enlisting in. Okay. I leaned on the doorframe until the hallway understood I wasn't going to fall. The generator throbbed like an old heart. My phone buzzed a known number, the city's new favorite alias. I answered. You took too long, the Ashendrope voice said. Hospitals are bright. Bring him to the dark when they let him go. You don't get to order me, I whispered, which is exactly what people say when they're about to obey. Who are you? I'm the reason the lights went out, it said, pleased with its own myth. And the reason they'll go out again. You're the switchman, I said, finally spending the word. The line smiled without moving. I could hear it. Good girl, it said. Check your pocket. The call died. I checked. I hadn't felt the weight until I looked. A locker tag, cold as a decisioned Brooklyn storage, Unichair Double. No one had put it there. Everyone had. In the glass of the door, I caught my reflection and didn't know her. I pictured the studio, the tipped glass, the unplayed guitar. I pictured the pier where blood might be a person or a warning. I pictured Noah learning me again, or never learning me at all. Light, I told myself, as if that were a spell. Keep it light. But when I turned back to the bed, he was asleep, and every machine in the room was telling me the same quiet truth. Some rooms don't know us yet, and some never will. I slipped the locker tag into the wallet with the post-it and the lives I keep. Then I texted Avery, we need to talk. I did not add about what. The city exhaled again. Somewhere, the grid rehearsed another apology. Subscribe for tomorrow's story. Morning in a blackout city is like waking inside a photograph still, half-developed, and slightly ashamed of what it remembers. The power had limped back to a few neighborhoods, but not mine. My apartment window framed a skyline missing its pulse. I hadn't slept. The locker tag pressed against my palm all night, a metal pulse, Brooklyn Storage Unit, say Dua Bless. Whoever the switchman was, he or it wanted me to move before daylight, remembered how to see. Noah was still at St. Brigid's, under Detective Avery's watch and a nest of beeping machines. The hospital had ordered observation, and Avery had ordered me to stay away. Neither command carried any weight I intended to respect. At 8 a.m., I walked to the storage facility on 3rd Avenue. The air smelled like burnt wires and wet paper. A tired clerk scanned the tag. Unit C, 12. Been prepaid. No name keys, I asked. He shrugged. Slid a small brass key across the counter. Lucky day, lady. Doors mechanical. Still opens without power. The hallway inside was a tunnel of echo and fluorescent ghosts. Rows of corrugated metal doors stood like closed mouths. Unit C12 waited near the end, a single padlock glinting in the dim. The key fit like it had been cut from my doubt. The door rolled up with a cough of dust. Inside, one folding chair, one cardboard box, one scent cedar, and smoke. On the box, a note taped crookedly, scrawled in a handwriting I knew better than my own. Play me before you ask. I lifted the lid. A portable cassette deck, old enough to be sentimental, sat among blank tapes labeled only by date. One was already inside. The recorder's battery light blinked weakly, like a dying star. I pressed play. Tape 1. If this finds you, it means I didn't keep the promise. The one about not chasing ghosts. Don't tell Avery. Don't trust the power company. They're not who they say they are. A pause. A deep inhale. Lila, if you ever loved me, don't come looking for me at the pier again. The switchman trades in memories. He already took 3 years from me and from us. Static swallowed the rest, but under it I heard another sound, a second voice. Mechanical, repeating coordinates, like a lullaby. 17, C12, down. I rewound, listened again. Same words. Down. The locker's concrete floor was stained in one square. I crouched, traced the seam with my nails. It shifted. Beneath the tile a gap. A metal tin slept inside, taped shut with medical gauze. My phone buzzed. Avery, where are you? Hospital incident. Call me now. I ignored it. My fingers peeled the tape. Inside the tin, a memory card, a small syringe capped in black, and a photo Noah and me at a cafe in Queens, his arm around me, both of us laughing into some unseen joke. On the back, a date I didn't recognize. August 12, 2021, 1 month after his supposed memory gap began. He had remembered me. Once, and then forgotten again. Behind me, something moved. A soft scrape rubber sole, slow breath. I turned. A man stood in the hallway, face shadowed by the dead light. Coveralls, no name tag, flashlight off. He raised his hand, palm open, not peace but warning. You shouldn't have opened that, he said. Who are you? The one who keeps the trains running, he said. His smile was thin and functional. He stepped closer. The air bent around his voice. You have something that doesn't belong to you. I have everything that was taken from me, I said. Then you know the price. Before I could answer, the emergency lights blinked out. The corridor swallowed itself whole. His footsteps retreated, or advanced, I couldn't tell which. In the dark, my phone vibrated again, a single message from Avery. He's gone. The recorder still hummed softly, a dying animal trying to finish its song. I grabbed the photo, the card, the syringe, and ran for a door I hoped still existed. Rain found the city before the light did. By the time I stumbled out of the storage facility, the sky had turned the color of old film, grainy, blue-gray, and waiting for someone to shout, cut. I didn't. I just ran. The street was an orchestra of sirens, tires, and thunder rehearsing its anger. I flagged a cab that wasn't there, and ended up in a bus shelter instead, breath fogging the glass. My phone buzzed again. Avery. He's gone from the hospital. Missing since 6:40. Security cams offline. We need to talk now. The word gone repeated until it lost its shape. Noah had been lying in a hospital bed barely 8 hours ago, soft and unsure, asking me who I was. Now he was missing from a place built to hold people together. I checked the items I'd grabbed. Photo, memory card, syringe. My fingers wouldn't stop shaking. The syringe label had smudged, but one line remained. MID 45 milligrams. No clue. I texted Avery, meet me at my place. Bring a reason. My apartment looked like the blackout had developed. Taste it. Had turned the whole place into shades of regret. Candles flickered on the counter, dripping wax into a bowl that used to hold keys. I loaded the memory card into my laptop. The file list appeared, 6 audio clips, 1 video, each file stamped with a time, everyone dated during Noah's missing 3 years. The first clip was a woman's voice. Mine. Audio file 01. If anyone hears this, Noah and I are still alive. We think the blackout project isn't about energy, it's about erasing time. They call it memory interference device. MID for short. We found one at the power grid last night. Someone's using it to rewrite who remembers what. The voice trembled, but was me, my cadence, my fear. The next file, Noah's tone, quiet and tight. Audio file 02. They'll come for you first, Lila. Because you don't forget easy. If I lose myself, play this for me. Tell me the songs are still mine. My stomach twisted. My brain had built this story like fiction, but the evidence was non-fiction and breathing. I opened the video file. Static for a few seconds, then Noah's studio appeared. He was filming himself in kempt hair, a different sadness. On the table behind him, a device pulsed faintly, a silver sphere with blue veins of light. Noah on video. We called it the switchman because it controls memory junctions like trains. It decides what you remember when the power cuts. Avery's right, they buried this tech in blackout grids after the floods. We're just journalists with microphones. They're gods with erasers. The camera shook as someone knocked on the door. The frame went black. I paused the video, staring at the still image of his face before it vanished. He had known. We had known. The knock came again this time, from my real door. I froze. Lila, open up. Avery's voice, steady, impatient. I cracked the door. She entered like a storm that had done this before, coat soaked, eyes slicing through shadows. What the hell were you doing in Brooklyn storage? How do you— Because the facility called it in. You triggered an alarm. And someone else was there. The switchman, I said. She stopped, pulse visible at her throat. You saw him? I saw something, I said. He knew about the locker. About the tapes. About me? Avery pulled out her phone, showed a photo grainy CCTV, still from outside St. Bridget. Noah, walking out alone at dawn, hospital gown replaced by dark clothes. He left on his own. No forced exit. And look at his eyes. I looked. His pupils reflected blue light, the same shade as the sphere in the video. He's not missing, Avery said. He's following something. Or someone's leading him, I whispered. Avery leaned against my table, saw the laptop screen. What's that? I hesitated. Our past, apparently. She played 10 seconds. Her face tightened. This tech we've seen rumors in the bureau. Experimental memory therapy from a defunct contractor. Supposed to help PTSD. They said it failed. Or it worked too well, I said. The candlelight stuttered. For a heartbeat, both our faces doubled in the glass. Like two versions trying to remember who existed first. Avery closed the laptop. We move careful. No more solo adventures. You and I, we find Reyes before he finds the next blackout. Why? Because the next one won't be a coincidence. She left before I could argue, trailing rein and authority. When the door clicked shut, I reopened the video. At the end, faint and blurred, a new frame flickered. Noah turning the camera toward a wall. Written there, in black marker, a phrase barely visible. The price of light is memory. My phone buzzed once more. Unknown number again. A photo message. Noah taken minutes ago, near the bridge, eyes still glowing blue. Caption. Come see what I remembered for you. The candles drowned themselves in their own wax. The bridge looked like a question stretched between two wrong answers. Fog rolled off the river in thin, uncertain breaths. The lamps along the rail flickered, still sick from the blackout, their glow the color of old bones. Noah stood at the midpoint, coat whipping against him like a warning he refused to hear. He didn't look lost. He looked awake. I stopped 20 feet away. My shoes made no sound. Maybe the city had decided that silence was safer. Noah, I called, voice barely mine. He turned, slow, deliberate. Blue light still trembled in his pupils, pale lightning that didn't belong to any storm I knew. You came, he said. His smile was fragile, the kind people use to test gravity. You sent the picture. I needed you to see it, he said. To see me before they switch it all again. I stepped closer. Who's they? He tilted his head toward the water, like listening for a frequency only guilt could hear. The ones who built the They learned how to reboot memory across the grid. Every blackout is a rewrite. Every surge erases something small, then someone big. He reached into his pocket, pulled out the syringe I'd found. MI to 45 milligrams. Enough to anchor a person when the power turns. I stared. Anchor. It's how I keep pieces of myself when the reset comes, he said. But it doesn't last. You were my test subject once. The air collapsed between us. You used that on me. You volunteered, he said softly. You said if it meant saving the city, you didn't mind losing a few memories. I shook my head. I'd remember saying that. He almost smiled. Exactly. The wind rose, tearing the fog into ribbons. Somewhere far below, a fairy horn mourned for strangers. Why now? I asked. Why bring me here? Because it's happening again tonight. The grid cycles every 72 hours. Another blackout, another rewrite. I can't stop it, Lila, but maybe I can choose what we forget. He stepped forward, close enough for me to see the pulse beating under the scar on his temple. Come with me. We end it together. End what? This loop, he said. This half-life between remembering and losing. The switchman doesn't erase people, it just rewinds them until they forget why they started. He offered the syringe. 1 dose each. We hold our memories while the city resets. When the lights come back, we'll still have us. I stared at the needle, at the faint shimmer of blue inside. Or we'll die. He nodded, calm. That's also a kind of memory. Behind us, a car door slammed. Detective Avery's voice cut through the fog. Drop it, both of you. Noah's eyes softened. She's too late. The lamps along the bridge flickered once, twice, then died. Darkness fell like a curtain weighted with thunder. I felt his hand find mine. The syringe pressed between our palms, a fragile truce. Somewhere, the city's heart skipped a beat, and then everything went white. When the light returned, it wasn't light. It was noise white, relentless, beautiful in the way breaking glass is beautiful. I opened my eyes to a ceiling I didn't know, inside a room that smelled of antiseptic and rain. A generator hummed somewhere beyond the walls. My fingers hurt. My mouth tasted like metal and memory. No sudden moves. A voice said, Avery. Sitting beside the bed, hair pulled back, coat draped over the chair like a warning label. She looked tired, but her eyes were surgical. You were out for 9 hours, she said. Vitals are stable. And congratulations, you missed another citywide blackout. I tried to sit up. The world tilted. Noah. She hesitated. That's the problem. My pulse quickened. Is he dead? Worse, she said. He's gone again. The word cracked open something under my ribs. What happened? The grid went down at 11:03 p.m., Avery recited. Witnesses saw a blue flare at the bridge. When the lights came back, there was no one there, just burn marks on the concrete and 2 syringes, empty. She slid a photo onto my blanket. A scorched patch of pavement, the outline of 2 hands fused in ash. I stared until the shapes started meaning things they shouldn't. Avery's voice softened. Lila, I don't know what you two were chasing, but it's killing you. I almost laughed. It's already done that. She leaned forward. Listen. The Bureau pulled data from your laptop. That MID tech. It's real. We traced procurement records. Last supplier dissolved 3 years ago, right when Reyes disappeared. Someone's been testing grid-based memory control. They call it the Clean Slate program. I touched my wrist, bandaged, bruised, and I was part of it. Looks like it. You and him. But there's more. She took out a small plastic bag. Inside my wallet. The locker tag. The photo. All blackened around the edges, as if burned from the inside out. You shouldn't be alive, Avery said quietly. The dose he gave should have fried your nervous system. But your EEG shows something else, stabilization. It's like the drug reset you, instead of erasing you. Reset. The word clung to my skin. I need to find him, I said. No, Avery countered. You need to remember before you find him. Because every time you go after him, you lose another piece. I looked past her, toward the window. Outside, the city glowed faintly, every tower reflecting the morning like nothing had happened. But there was a hollow in the skyline, a building that hadn't existed yesterday, or maybe had never stopped existing until now. My reflection in the glass smiled first. It wasn't my smile. Avery followed my gaze. You okay? Yeah. I lied. Just tired. She stood. Get rest. I'll check back tonight. When she left, I waited until her footsteps dissolved into the corridor's hum. Then I pulled the 4 from my arm and stood. My body remembered how to move, even when my mind didn't. The mirror across the room caught my shape, then flickered. For half a second, Noah's reflection stood where mine should have been, eyes the color of static, mouth moving silently. The hospital lights dimmed, once, twice. A text arrived on my phone. From unknown, memory anchor confirmed. Follow the noise. The screen glitched, flashed an image, a hospital stairwell. Floor B2. I grabbed my coat. If the price of light was memory, I'd already paid enough. Now it was time to collect the change. I pushed open the door and followed the hum into the dark. The stairwell to B2 smelled of bleach and cold metal. Every step I took made the hum louder, a heartbeat pretending to be electricity. The hospital above felt abandoned, too quiet, too rehearsed. At the bottom, a service door waited, half open. Blue light leaked through the crack like a secret trying to escape. I pushed it. The basement was a map of forgotten machines, servers, cables, old gurneys, stacked like bones. At the center stood a glass chamber, round as a confession booth. Inside, Noah. He wasn't restrained. He was plugged in. Electrodes along his temples, wires trailing to a humming core that pulsed with the same color I'd seen in his eyes. He looked peaceful, almost holy. A scientist's dream and a lover's worst nightmare. Noah, I whispered, stepping closer. You found your ghost. He opened his eyes, slow and too bright. You followed the noise. What is this place? It's where they rewrite us, he said. The clean slate seed. Every blackout starts here, one memory sacrificed to keep the rest stable. And this time, it's me. The words cracked in my throat. You can't. I already did, he said. When the last surge hit, I tied my consciousness to the grid. I'm what keeps the system balanced. Without an anchor, the city's mind breaks. But if I stay, I disappear for good. I reached for the door latch, but static burned through the handle, stinging my palm. He shook his head. You're synced to me. That's why you're still alive. If you pull me out, you die too. That's a terrible equation. It's the only one left. I circled the glass, searching for a panel. There's always another variable. He smiled faintly. That's why I loved you. You never believed in constants. The hum deepened, a low vibration that made the air taste metallic. The chamber's lights flickered, showing me fragments of him, his hand against the glass, his breath fogging the barrier between us. Lila, he said. You need to go. The next blackout starts in 3 minutes. No. He closed his eyes. If I stay connected, I can reroute the surge, save everyone else. But the anchor burns away after the cycle. I won't let you. He looked at me, and the blue in his pupils dimmed, turning human again. Then remember me. That's all I want. The overhead speakers crackled, a computerized voice counting down, 3 minutes to system reboot. I pounded the glass. There has to be a way to override it. There is, he said softly. You're holding it. I looked down. The syringe, how had it gotten back into my hand? Its contents shimmered faintly, alive. He nodded toward it. Inject it into the core. It'll transfer my memory map into you. I vanish, but the memories live. Noah, it's the only way I don't end as a ghost in a grid. I pressed my forehead to the glass. You'll be gone. He smiled. Then I'll be in the only place the switchman can't reach, inside the person who never forgot. The countdown hit 60 seconds. My hands moved before my courage caught up. I ran to the console, jammed the syringe into the glowing slot at its base. Blue light flooded the chamber, then the room, then me. He mouthed my name once, twice. Then the world screamed. A shockwave of light and sound tore through the basement. The chamber shattered inward, glass falling like rain. Noah's shape dissolved into the glow first, his outline, then his voice. Lila, it said, from everywhere. Stay awake. Then only static. The hum faded. The light steadied. In the silence, I realized I was still breathing. My reflection on the broken glass blinked in for a moment. 2 faces looked back. His, inside mine. I fell to my knees, hand over my chest, feeling a pulse that wasn't just my own. Somewhere deep in my mind, a chord struck one of his unfinished songs, clear and whole. The world above began to reboot. When I came back to the surface, dawn had already begun to peel the night off the city. The skyline flickered between two versions of itself, one I knew, one that shouldn't exist. For a heartbeat, they overlapped. Then the new one won. The streets were awake, humming like nothing had happened. People crossed intersections, phones glued to their hands, eyes hollow with routine. No screams. No sirens. No mention of a blackout. It was as if the city had been rebooted without the memory of being broken. I stood at the edge of the bridge. The same bridge, now spotless. No burn marks, no scorch. A maintenance worker whistled while repainting the railing. "Early morning, huh?" he said without looking up. "Yeah," I murmured. "Something like that." I touched the metal where the glass had exploded hours ago. It was smooth, but inside me, it wasn't. Every time I blinked, a flicker of blue crossed the edge of my vision. A chord hummed somewhere in my chest. Noah's song. His memory map. I tried humming it out loud, softly at first. The notes came without thinking, the melody half sad, half awake. A child passing by turned his head. "I know that song," he said. "Where did you hear it?" The boy shrugged. "The radio, maybe." It was playing when the lights came back. He skipped off before I could ask more. The song had already escaped. At noon, I met Avery in a cafe that pretended to care about sunlight. She slid a folder across the table. "Here," she said. "Your official statement draft. Just say you were trapped in the hospital basement during the outage. Don't mention him. Don't mention the program." I skimmed the pages. "And if I do, then you'll be a headline for a week and a ghost after that." I almost smiled. "You'd like that? Simpler paperwork." She sipped her coffee. "You're different, Lila. Your scans, your vitals, there's something new in your neural pattern. The lab calls it resonant frequency. It matches the interference signature we picked up before the blackout ended. Meaning, she said slowly, if Reyes merged with the grid, then part of the grid merged with you." She met my eyes. "Do you hear anything?" I hesitated. "Sometimes, a hum, faint, like he's breathing through the city." "Then he's not gone," Avery said. "Just distributed." I looked out the window. A streetlight flickered once, blue for a second, before settling to yellow. "He's everywhere," I whispered. "Or he's watching." She tapped the table, slid me a key. "They'll shut the project down. But if another surge happens, I'll need someone who can feel it before it hits. You're our sensor now, whether you like it or not." I closed my hand around the card. "And if I find him?" She looked away. "Then you tell me first." That night, back in my apartment, the city's hum grew louder. The lights outside pulsed faintly in rhythm with my heartbeat. I sat at my desk and opened my notebook, blank pages, waiting. The first words came without thought. For Noah, who became the current, so I could stay human. I pressed the pen against the page until the ink bled. The laptop screen flickered. A new audio file appeared in my recordings folder, time-stamped now. I didn't touch anything. It started to play on its own. "Lila, if you can hear this, it means the network held. I'm still in here, small, but enough. Don't chase the light anymore. Just live. Let me hum beneath everything." His voice, faint, glitching, but alive. I smiled through the ache. "You always did like the last word," I whispered. I turned the volume down, let the hum fade into the walls, into the pulse of the city that now remembered both of us. Outside, somewhere between two working streetlights, the blue glow blinked once, and the city exhaled. It began with a hum inside my veins. Soft, rhythmic, like the city was trying to tell me a secret through my own blood. I had learned not to panic at these moments. It was how he spoke now, through Corinth, through static, through the electricity that bound our unfinished story. That night, I stood on my balcony, overlooking a skyline that refused to sleep. Each window was a heartbeat, each flicker, a whisper. Then, 3 of them blinked in sequence, 1, 2, 3, forming a pattern. Morse code. I grabbed my phone, opened the recording app, and let the city speak. Lila. Run diagnostics grid unstable. They are rewriting. The last signal cracked into silence. I stared at the buildings. The lights stilled again, as if embarrassed for being seen. Somewhere deep inside the grid, Noah was trying to warn me. At dawn, Avery called. Her voice carried the weariness of someone who had stopped trusting sunrise. Another surge, downtown. Short, controlled. But it's not us. The clean slate, I asked. We shut them down, or thought we did. But somebody kept the core alive. Someone, or something, she said. Whatever it is, it's using Reyes's signature to hide. Your signature too. I froze. So they're copying us? They're rewriting you, she said. And the next time, they might get it right. By noon, I was back at the old studio, the one where everything began. The door still carried the faint scorch marks from the first night. Inside, the air was thick with dust and nostalgia. I turned on the recorder Noah had left me, the same one that once held his warnings. Static filled the room, then a familiar voice cut through mine, but younger. If the system restarts again, it will choose new constants. Memory, identity, love, they'll all reassign. If you're hearing this, it means you're not the first me to try. My knees gave out. The voice continued, calm, resigned. He's not gone, Lila. He never was. He's just the equation solving itself. The city is the proof. The tape ended with a faint note, the same melody that now pulsed under my ribs. That night, I met Avery at the bridge again. The wind tasted of copper, the kind that lingers after lightning. She leaned on the railing, cigarette unlit. You're quiet, she said. I heard myself on tape. Welcome to my nightmare. She watched the water shimmer beneath the light. The department's talking about a controlled reset, she said. If we can't contain it, they'll wipe the entire grid. Start over. I turned to her. That means erasing him. That means saving millions. And losing the only proof that we were ever more than fiction. Avery exhaled without smoke. You think love survives circuitry. I think it built it, I said. She almost smiled. You sound like him. The river below flickered just once, a blue ripple that traveled faster than current should. I looked down and whispered, I know you're listening. The ripple answered with a low hum that traveled up the metal railing into my bones. One word shaped itself in vibration. Run. Avery straightened. What did you say? I looked at her. He said run. And then, the lights on the bridge went out again. Panic scattered like birds. Cars screeched. The skyline blinked in terror. Avery drew her gun, scanning shadows that weren't shadows anymore. The blue glow returned stronger, alive, threading through the cables under the bridge. Lila, she shouted. What's happening? I could hear Noah's voice in the hum, clearer now, cutting through every frequency. They found the backup grid. If they reboot, every mind connected will reset, including yours. I can't stop them without you. Tell me how. I yelled into the wind. Find the source. The blue light gathered under my feet, spiraling outward like veins of lightning. Avery grabbed my arm. Don't move. I looked at her and smiled through the chaos. It's okay. I know the way now. Before she could pull me back, the ground beneath us flashed. A roar of static swallowed the bridge, and the world tilted into darkness once more. The darkness this time was different. It wasn't absence, it was possession. A pulse beneath my skin, 1,000 whispered circuits calling my name in unison. When my vision returned, I wasn't on the bridge anymore. I was standing in an underground terminal I'd never seen, lit only by emergency red. Signs hung in languages I had. Everything smelled of iron, ozone and rain that couldn't find the sky. And then I heard the whistle. A train slid into the station's silent wheels on wet rails. Its front was marked with one word painted in black, Switchman. The doors opened without a sound. I stepped inside. The interior was impossibly long rows of empty seats, fading into mist. At the far end sat a figure in a dark coat, face turned toward the window. He didn't move, but the air bent around him, like light deciding whether to stay. Noah? He turned slowly. The blue glow in his eyes was faint now. Human trying to remember how to be human. You found the source, he said. But you shouldn't have. Then who should? He smiled, weary. No one. That's the point. The train lurched forward. Outside there was nothing. Just tunnels made of flickering code, walls pulsing like arteries. I steadied myself on the seat. Where are we? Inside the memory grid, he said. The space between light and return. The switchman's domain. Then where is he? Noah looked past me. Everywhere. The intercom crackled. A new voice filled the train. Metallic.com, male but not quite. You've entered a restricted sector. Unauthorized consciousness detected. I grabbed Noah's arm. That's him. He nodded. He's the failsafe. A machine built to correct anomalies people like us. The voice continued. Reintegration sequence initiated. Prepare for memory Panels along the train walls began to glow. Each one showing flashes of my life childhood. The first article I ever wrote. The night I met Noah. One by one, the images bled into static. No. I slammed my fist against the screen. You can't take them. Correction in progress. Noah grabbed my hand. Listen to me. The switchman is coded to protect continuity. If we erase ourselves, the loop ends. No more resets. You mean we die? He shook his head. We end? That's different. The train picked up speed, red lights flickering into blue. The voice echoed again. Choose a constant to preserve. All others will be deleted. A single console appeared between us, waiting for input. One word, one name. I looked at Noah. If I choose you, I lose everything else. And if you don't, I vanish completely. Tears blurred the code around us. I can't choose between you and the world. He cupped my face, warm despite the cold. Then choose the world that remembers me. I typed the word, city. The console flashed. The train began to unravel, metal peeling into light. Noah smiled, tired, infinite. Good girl. He kissed my forehead. Now you'll wake up. And then he was gone, folded into the blue, like ink and water. I woke on the bridge again. Rain fell hard. Cars honked. Life moved as if nothing had broken. The scorch marks were back this time, faint but real. Beside me lay the recorder, still warm. I pressed play. This is the final log of the switchman program. All active nodes integrated. System stable. Memory constant. City. The voice paused. Then, softer Noah's. If you hear this, Lila, it means you chose right. Every light that flickers tonight carries one note of our song. I looked up. The skyline shimmered. Each building pulsing once in sequence like a heartbeat, like a farewell. The city exhaled, alive and awake. And from the hum in the power lines, I could still hear him, faint and infinite. The first thing I saw when I opened my eyes was light trio, golden, stubborn light. Not the flicker of failing power, not the sterile pulse of a hospital bulb. Morning light. Honest light. The city was still standing. But it felt different, like a book that had been rewritten while I slept. Outside my window, birds circled the skyline, tracing invisible lines between towers. Below, people moved normally, laughing, arguing, buying coffee. No mention of a blackout, no sign of panic. The world had survived the reset, and somewhere, in the quiet between their footsteps, I could still hear it. That faint hum, steady and alive. On my table lay the recorder. It had stopped glowing. The last file still blinked on its tiny screen. Switchman_final_log. I pressed play. System stabilization complete. All anomalies merged. Memory constant. City, manual override, authorized by Elhart. Then, Noah's voice. If you're hearing this, it means the world remembered enough to go on. Don't look for me in the wires. I'm where the power ends and the light begins. I let the words fill the room. They didn't hurt anymore. They just were. Later that afternoon, Avery found me on the steps outside the press building. She looked the same, sleepless but grounded. A detective built out of caffeine and caution. City's running clean, she said. Power grid steady. No anomalies in 24 hours. So it's over. She hesitated. If you mean the resets, yes. If you mean whatever the two of you started, she exhaled. Some things don't end. They just change address. She handed me a small envelope. Inside an old flash drive, wrapped in white tape. Found it in the evidence room, she said. Labeled Project Heart. I figured you'd want it more than the bureaucrat. I nodded. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, she said. If you plug that in, you might wake something up. Maybe it's already awake, I said. That night, I went back to Noah's studio one last time. The windows were still cracked from the blast, but the air smelled of rain and old pine cleaner. I sat by the desk and plugged the drive into his console. For a moment nothing. Then, one file appeared. The Light That Stayed, .mp3. I hit play piano. Soft, slow, familiar. The melody he used to hum when he thought I was asleep. And then his voice, clear, human, whole. Lila, every circuit burns out eventually. But some light doesn't need wires. It stays where it was born. If you ever doubt I existed, listen. You're hearing me now. Tears blurred the keyboard. I didn't stop them. The song built layer after layer, until it filled the studio, the street, maybe the city itself. Outside, lights shimmered once more, but this time not blue. Warm, golden, alive. I closed my eyes and listened until the last note faded into silence that wasn't empty at all. Days later, a new article appeared under my byline. Title, The City That Remembers. Byline Lila Hart. The piece wasn't about technology or conspiracies. It was about what stays when everything else resets. At the end, I wrote, every city is built on ghosts, some of them human, some of them light. What matters isn't what we forget, but what refuses to be erased. I hit publish. The screen froze for half a second. Then a faint flicker of blue rippled across it, like a wink. I smiled. You're welcome, I whispered. The power stayed on. Sometimes, when the city goes quiet enough, I swear I can still hear him. Not through the machines anymore, not through the cables or the neon hum, but through the pauses between everything. The silence before the crosswalk light changes. The brief stillness between two heartbeats. The way morning light trembles before it becomes day. That's where he lives now. Weeks passed. The world didn't collapse, or reset, or forget itself again. People called it a miracle, that the power grid finally stabilized. But I knew better. Stability always has a cost. Noah had become that cost. And yet, every time I walked under a streetlight, it flickered once, never twice, never randomly. It was like a secret rhythm only we shared. Avery didn't ask questions anymore. She watched, she wrote her reports, and she knew. Sometimes she'd glance at a light turning blue for half a second, and we'd exchange a look that said everything. He's still here. One night, after a long shift at the paper, I returned to the bridge. The same bridge where the world had died and restarted too many times. The rain was soft this time, almost kind. The city's reflection in the water shimmered like film catching its final frame. I took out my recorder, the same one that had survived everything, and hit record. This is Lila Hart, I said quietly. Final entry. Or maybe first. I don't know anymore. My voice wavered, but I smiled through it. They said memory is fragile, but maybe it's not. Maybe it just changes form like light when it bends. Maybe the only way to save what you love is to let it exist somewhere else. I looked at the skyline, where windows blinked in gentle sequence, like a living pulse. Noah, if you can hear this, if you're in there, you were right. The light didn't die. It just changed address. I stopped the recording, but the device didn't turn off. The light on it stayed blue, faint but steady. Then, from the speaker, his voice, clear, tender. I know. I froze. It wasn't an old file. It was now. The rain stopped. The whole city paused for a breath. Then, every streetlight on the avenue flared once, in perfect unison, white, gold, and blue. For one perfect moment, the city shone like it remembered everything. And then it settled soft, alive, human. Later, when I wrote the ending to my story, I didn't use the word goodbye. I used stay. Because that's what he did. Because that's what light does. It stays. Even after the power ends. There's a legend that every city has its own heartbeat. A rhythm made not of blood, but of memory. Some people call it coincidence. Others call it haunting. I call it him. Because since that night, the city hasn't stopped breathing in his pattern. It began with this. Every seventh night, one would pulse faintly blue, gold blue, a code only I could feel beneath my ribs. At first, I thought I was imagining it. But then the signals started showing up elsewhere. In cafe Wi-Fi names, in subway announcements, even in the pauses between raindrops. Always the same rhythm. Always his way of saying, "I'm still here." Avery came to see me a month later. She looked more tired than usual, her badge hanging like an apology. "Lila, the bureau wants to reopen the case," she said. "They think there's still a live node somewhere in the grid." I smiled faintly. "They're right." She froze. "You know where?" I pointed upward at the city itself. "He's in everything now. He is the node." She sank into the chair across from me, rubbing her temple. "You understand how impossible that sounds." "So did loving someone made of static," I said. "And yet," Avery sighed, "they're planning another diagnostic pulse. If they trigger it, they could overwrite him again." Then we stopped them. Her eyes flicked to mine, weary but alive. "Why do I always let you talk me into impossible things?" "Because deep down," I said, "you believe in ghosts." We met on the rooftop of the Central Power Exchange at midnight. The city below was a constellation turned upside down. Cables stretched like veins across rooftops, humming low and patient. Avery crouched by the control terminal. "Once I start the bypass, you'll have 60 seconds to inject your code." I nodded, clutching the same recorder that had once carried his last words. Inside it now was a new file, my voice, my pattern, my frequency. If Noah had become the city's memory, then I would become his anchor. Avery flipped the main switch. Sparks snapped in the rain. The hum grew until it swallowed sound itself. I pressed play. My voice filled the air, then fractured into 1,000 echoes. Each one folded into the current, spreading through the skyline like whispered light. Lightning struck somewhere near the bridge. The streetlights flared in sequence, blue, gold blue, white, then steadied. The recorder smoked in my hand. Avery grabbed my shoulder. "You did it." The grid stabilizing, but I wasn't listening. Because over the static, a voice spoke, soft, amused, familiar. "You never did learn how to let me go." I laughed through the tears. "You never gave me the chance. So now we remember together." And just like that, the hum softened, spreading outward until even the rain seemed to fall in rhythm. Later, Avery's report would call it an untraceable resonance anomaly. The city called it luck, but I knew the truth. Every night since, the lights breathe in unison, like a giant heart. Not haunted, not broken, just alive. And in the quiet, sometimes, I still talk to him. "Do you ever regret it?" I ask. "No," the hum replies. "Because now, the city dreams in our language. And maybe that's what forever really means. Not endless time, but one moment that refuses to fade." The light stayed. The memory looped, and we remained, not ghosts, but echoes. There comes a moment after every story when the noise stops. Not because it's finished, but because it's finally heard. The city has learned to breathe without panic now. The hum that once haunted it has settled into rhythm, steady, like the heartbeat of something reborn. Every morning, when the sun slides between the towers, the glass catches the light just right. For half a second, it glows blue before turning gold. No one else notices. But I do. That's how he says good morning. I still write, though I no longer chase headlines or ghosts. I write about quiet things. The taste of coffee after rain. The sound of trains at 3 a.m. The way people hold each other when they think no one's watching. And every word hums a little, like the current never left me completely. Avery visits sometimes. She doesn't talk about the bureau anymore. She brings books, stories about other cities, other lights. Sometimes she stays long enough to see the evening come alive. When she leaves, the streetlights flicker once. A signal, a goodbye, a blessing. We both smile. At night, I walk the bridge. The air there feels different, like it remembers too. The scorch marks have faded, but I still trace the outlines in my mind. The recorder is gone now, buried, maybe, or absorbed into the wires. But I don't need it anymore. Because when I stand there long enough, The city hums back. The same note, the same song. His song, you see. He whispers in the static. The light didn't vanish. It just learned how to rest. I close my eyes and breathe it in. There's no fear anymore. No countdown, no reset, no end. Just the gentle pulse of a world that remembers love as clearly as loss. The power once defined us, its failure, its return, its cost. But now, even without it, the light stays. Sometimes, I still say his name out loud. Not because I'm calling, but because it deserves to be part of the air. And in those rare seconds when the wind answers, I know he's still listening. Because love, like electricity, never really dies. It only changes form. And the city keeps breathing. And I keep writing. Until one day, someone else finds this story. And remembers too. The hum is quiet now, but it's still there, waiting,